7 years. A period that may seem brief, but it carries an immense weight. Imagine a world shrouded in darkness, where hope feels like a distant flame. The sky, once blue, is now cloaked in ominous clouds. And as the countdown begins, what would you do? How would you react to impending signs, prophecies unfolding, and reality transforming before your very eyes? These 7 years will be marked by unimaginable challenges and surprising revelations. What many consider fiction could turn into the purest truth. The battle between light and darkness has never been so intense. And as you reflect, unsettling questions arise. Who will stand by your side? What alliances will be formed? What is really at stake? Prepare for a journey that challenges understanding. Let's explore the mysteries surrounding this dark period and uncover what it means for us, for humanity. With each step, new truths emerge, and you are about to discover how all of this connects with our present. Don't look away. The end of times may just be the beginning of something extraordinary. When we talk about the 7 years of darkness, it's impossible not to delve into the historical roots surrounding this idea. Since ancient times, various cultures have believed in cycles of darkness and renewal. Many civilizations, such as the Mayans and Babylonians, had calendars predicting periods of calamity and transformation. This notion that darkness precedes light seems to be ingrained in human nature, as if we somehow need to undergo purification before reaching a new state of being. These beliefs are not limited to a single tradition. In Christianity, for example, the concept of the apocalypse is closely tied to darkness, where the end times are often associated with a period of great tribulation. The Book of Revelation mentions catastrophic events that may occur before the arrival of a new heaven and a new earth. On the other hand, in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is an event that brings destruction but is also followed by rebirth. The connection between darkness and transformation also appears in philosophy. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, suggests that the exit from the cave represents the transition from ignorance to knowledge, a process that can be seen as a metaphor for passing through a period of darkness before reaching enlightenment. Thus, the idea of 7 years of darkness is not merely a religious belief, but something that permeates the history and philosophy of humanity. Moreover, these periods of darkness often coincide with social and political crises. Revolutions, wars, and pandemics have been interpreted by many as signs that we are entering a cycle of darkness. This historical context cannot be overlooked, as it shapes how people interpret these events and prepare for what lies ahead. History is an endless cycle of light and shadow, and the 7 years of darkness are just another chapter in that narrative. Ultimately, the idea of 7 years of darkness also reflects a human need to make sense of suffering and uncertainty. In times of crisis, people seek explanations to justify the pain and chaos around them. The belief in a period of darkness can provide a certain comfort, an idea that after the darkness, there will be a rebirth, a new beginning, and that is something many long for, especially in difficult times. Religious interpretations of the 7 years of darkness vary widely, reflecting the diversity of beliefs and traditions around the world. In Christianity, for example, some groups interpret this idea as a literal 7-year period of tribulation, a direct reference to Revelation. This view is often fueled by preachers and religious leaders who emphasize the urgency of spiritual preparation, leading many to adopt a stance of vigilance and prayer. However, Judaism has a different perspective. While there is no specific mention of 7 years of darkness, Jewish tradition addresses the concept of exile and return, which can be seen as a parallel. The idea that humanity must endure periods of darkness as part of a divine cycle of repentance and redemption is a core belief, and many Jews view their history as a series of trials culminating in an eventual return to God's promise. Contemporary sects and religious movements also offer their interpretations of the 7 years of darkness. Some of these communities may see this period as an opportunity to detach from the material world and a call for spiritual ascension. The leaders of these sects often use apocalyptic narratives to attract followers, promising that those who prepare adequately will experience a form of salvation during these dark years. In contrast, some Eastern traditions, such as Buddhism, do not view darkness as an end, but as a state to be transcended. The idea that our perception of reality can be obscured by ignorance is central to this philosophy. Thus, the 7 years of darkness could be interpreted as a call for enlightenment and self-discovery, rather than merely a period of suffering and desolation. These religious interpretations not only shape individual beliefs and behaviors, but also influence entire communities. The way religious groups respond to the concept of the 7 years of darkness can affect their worship practices, social interactions, and even their political views. In summary, religious interpretations serve as a powerful lens through which individuals and communities attempt to understand a constantly changing and uncertain world. The discussion surrounding signs and prophecies that indicate the arrival of the 7 years of darkness is a theme that fascinates and frightens simultaneously. Many people believe that specific events serve as precursors to this period of darkness. These signs can range from natural disasters to social crises and even astrological phenomena. For many, these events are seen as warnings that something greater is on the horizon. Prophets and religious leaders often cite passages from sacred texts to justify their claims about the signs of the times. In Christianity, for example, earthquakes, wars, and famine are frequently mentioned as signs that the end is near. This interpretation is fueled by a combination of biblical texts and contemporary events, creating a narrative that seems to confirm the imminence of the 7 years of darkness. However, this quest for signs is not exclusive to a single religion. In various cultures, natural disasters have been interpreted as divine messages. For instance, in some indigenous traditions, extreme weather events are seen as a reflection of the Earth's spiritual discontent. This connection between the physical world and spirituality is a common element in many cultures, where observing the environment is fundamental to understanding larger events. Moreover, the age of information and social media has amplified the dissemination of theories about signs and prophecies. With the ease of sharing content online, theories about the 7 years of darkness can quickly gain traction among different groups. This may result in increasing paranoia and anxiety as people attempt to find patterns in everyday events that align with their beliefs. Nonetheless, it's important to consider the role of psychology in this search for signs. In times of uncertainty, people tend to seek explanations that make sense of the chaos around them. Interpreting events as signs of a dark period can provide a certain comfort, a way to make sense of suffering and anxiety. Ultimately, the pursuit of signs and prophecies is, in many ways, a human quest for understanding and meaning in an unpredictable world. The social and psychological impact of believing in the 7 years of darkness is a topic that deserves attention. The mere idea that a period of darkness is approaching can trigger a range of emotional reactions among populations. Fear, anxiety, and even despair can spread among those who believe calamity is imminent. In collective contexts, this can lead to panic behaviors and extreme reactions. In communities where the belief in the 7 years of darkness is strong, significant social mobilization may occur. Groups may come together around the idea of preparation, creating networks for support and resource sharing. This can be positive, fostering a sense of community, but it can also result in segregation and division between those who believe and those who do not. Such polarization can exacerbate social tensions and lead to conflicts. Additionally, the mental health of populations can be profoundly affected. The fear of a bleak future may lead to an increase in anxiety and depression disorders. People may feel paralyzed by uncertainty, making it difficult to make informed decisions about their lives. In extreme situations, this belief may even lead to self-destructive behaviors, where hopelessness sets in and the vision of a better future becomes nearly non-existent. The media also plays a crucial role in amplifying the social and psychological impact of these feelings. Coverage of catastrophic events can reinforce the idea that we are approaching a period of darkness. Sensationalism and apocalyptic predictions may fuel collective anxiety, making people feel even more vulnerable and insecure. The cycle of negative news can become a reflection of the belief in a bleak future. Ultimately, the way we handle these beliefs can influence our individual and collective well-being. Instead of succumbing to despair, some people seek ways to transform that fear into positive action. This can include community activities, volunteer work, or even self-care practices that promote mental health. By seeking meaning in times of uncertainty, individuals can find ways to resist the darkness, creating their own light amid the chaos. In recent years, the idea of 7 years of darkness has gained traction among various movements and groups worldwide. These collectives, ranging from religious communities to social activism organizations, each have their own particularities but share a common belief that a period of darkness and transformation is about to occur. It's fascinating to observe how these organizations rally around a narrative that blends spirituality, prophecies, and a series of warnings about the future. I find myself wondering how deeply this idea resonates with people and what factors lead them to unite around this belief. Some of these groups utilize digital platforms to spread their messages. Social media, blogs, and even podcasts have become true stages for discussions about the 7 years of darkness. In these spaces, leaders of these movements present their apocalyptic visions and often attempt to connect their beliefs to current events, such as political crises, natural disasters, and social tensions. It's interesting to note how these events are interpreted as signs that the arrival of this dark period is imminent. This often generates a sense of urgency and mobilizes individuals to prepare, whether spiritually or practically. On the flip side, there's also a commercial aspect to some of these movements. Books, courses, lectures, and even products related to apocalypse preparedness are on the rise. This raises ethical questions about the exploitation of people's fears. Are these organizations genuinely concerned about the well-being of their members, or are they more interested in profiting from a narrative of fear? Often, it's a bit of both. They provide a community and a sense of belonging in uncertain times, but also capitalize on that sentiment. Beyond financial issues, these groups also have an important social dimension. They attract individuals seeking purpose or an explanation for the confusion of the modern world. For many, the idea of 7 years of darkness offers a framework to understand what is happening around them. The promise of rebirth after darkness can be profoundly comforting. Thus, these movements become not only sources of information, but also networks of emotional and spiritual support, where individuals find solace and understanding amid chaos. Lastly, while some groups remain within a more limited scope, others expand and attempt to influence politics and society as a whole. This can be seen in awareness campaigns about climate change or movements advocating a return to more traditional values. Regardless of the approach, it is undeniable that these movements play a significant role in how the idea of the 7 years of darkness is perceived and discussed in contemporary society. The relationship between technology and the concept of 7 years of darkness is an intriguing topic. Today, technology is an intrinsic part of our lives, and many believe it can be used not only for good, but also as a tool for social control. When we think about a period of darkness, it's hard not to consider how surveillance devices and control algorithms could be implemented to monitor and restrict people's freedoms. This raises unsettling ethical questions about privacy and individual liberty. The advancement of surveillance technology, such as facial recognition cameras and data monitoring, blurs the line between security and social control. In a scenario where 7 years of darkness became a reality, it's not difficult to imagine how these systems could be used to suppress dissent and control the narrative. This makes me reflect on the role technology plays in our daily lives and to what extent it can become a weapon wielded by those in power. Additionally, social media, which often serves as a space for discussions and idea exchanges, can also be used to spread misinformation and incite fear. In a world where misinformation can spread rapidly, the idea of 7 years of darkness can easily turn into a viral phenomenon. Digital platforms can amplify this message, leading more people to believe in a bleak future and to prepare for it. This dynamic is concerning because technology, instead of uniting people, can end up isolating them in bubbles of fear and distrust. On the other hand, technology can also be an ally in preparing for these tough times. Apps that assist in information gathering, secure communication platforms, and even financial planning tools can be extremely useful for those who believe that 7 years of darkness are looming. The irony is that while technology can be used for control, it can also empower people to prepare for an uncertain future. This makes me reflect on the dual potential of technology in times of crisis. Finally, the intersection of technology and social control in the era of the 7 years of darkness also relates to the ethics of information. As we become increasingly dependent on technology for our daily interactions, it is essential to question who controls this data and how it is used. In a period of darkness, the manipulation of information can be a powerful weapon. Therefore, it is crucial to develop a critical awareness regarding the use of technology so that we can navigate an uncertain future with responsibility and ethics. The relationship between apocalyptic predictions of the 7 years of darkness and climate change is a conversation we cannot ignore. Natural disasters, which are becoming more frequent and severe, create a perfect backdrop for those who believe we are on the brink of collapse. Observing environmental disasters such as wildfires, hurricanes, and extreme droughts, many people begin to see these events as signs that something dark is on the horizon. To me, this is a mix of hope and despair, where nature becomes an agent of profound change. The narrative surrounding climate change is closely tied to a sense of urgency. When groups and movements discuss the idea of 7 years of darkness, they often incorporate these environmental issues into their messages. Environmental degradation is seen as a precursor to an era of difficulties, resonating with the everyday experiences of those affected by extreme weather events. It's as if the world is sending clear signals that we need to change, and this change is often presented as a condition to avoid a larger catastrophe. However, this interpretation is not always unanimous. Some argue that the idea of 7 years of darkness can divert attention from the practical solutions we need to implement to tackle the climate crisis. Instead of focusing on concrete actions, such as reducing carbon emissions and protecting ecosystems, the belief in an imminent apocalypse may lead to paralysis. This makes me think about how narrative can influence action, and how fear can be both a motivation and an obstacle. Moreover, the intersection between climate change and the idea of a period of darkness also raises questions about social justice. The impacts of climate change do not affect all communities equally. Often, the most vulnerable populations are the hardest hit. When discussing the possibility of an apocalypse, it is essential to consider who truly suffers the consequences and who has the resources to prepare. This dynamic can create even greater divisions in a society already marked by inequalities. Lastly, the relationship between climate change and the notion of 7 years of darkness invites us to reflect on our collective responsibility. Are we truly listening to the signals that the planet is sending us? The conversation about natural disasters and environmental crises could be an opportunity to promote positive change rather than succumbing to fear and apathy. The question is, how can we transform this narrative of darkness into a call to action? This is a question that, for me, is essential for the future we want to build. Talking about the economy in times of uncertainty is like trying to balance a glass of water on an unstable table. When the idea of 7 years of darkness is mentioned, many people immediately think of the financial crises that may follow a countdown. What's even more intriguing is that this notion doesn't stem solely from conspiracy theories or esoteric beliefs, but also from economic analyses that attempt to predict collapses and drastic changes. The relationship between economic crises and the expectation of a new cycle is complex. On one side, economists discuss cycles of expansion and recession. On the other, there's an almost mystical component suggesting that these cycles might be linked to cataclysmic events. During periods of economic instability, fear becomes a determining factor in people's decisions. When the idea of 7 years of darkness comes into play, it can exacerbate collective anxiety, making individuals feel even more insecure about their financial future. Crises, in turn, can be seen as a form of prediction, a harbinger that something greater is on the horizon. This leads many to draw comparisons between historical events and the present, trying to find patterns that justify their concerns. At its core, it's like a guessing game. Is the next major financial collapse merely a prelude to these dark years? Looking back at history, we've witnessed crises that changed the course of entire societies. The Great Depression, for instance, wasn't just an economic crisis. It was a phenomenon that altered how people viewed the world. And here's the question. Crises are not just numbers on graphs. They have a profound impact on culture, politics, and the psychology of individuals. Thus, the idea of 7 years of darkness can be seen as a dark backdrop for these crises, fueling a narrative that we are in a cycle of death and rebirth. The response to this situation often manifests in collective and individual actions. When people start to believe that we are in a countdown, they tend to prepare in ways that go beyond simple financial planning. This can include seeking autonomy, such as growing their own food or strengthening local communities. What once seemed like merely a financial concern can transform into a significant social movement. The economy, therefore, is not just a matter of numbers. It's also about how people connect and organize in times of crisis. Consequently, the economic impact associated with this belief in the 7 years of darkness can lead to deeper reflections on our priorities and values. After all, what truly matters when the world seems on the brink of collapse? For many, this crisis is an opportunity to reassess their lives and seek a deeper meaning, both in financial and spiritual terms. In this context, the economy becomes an arena not just of survival, but of transformation. Pop culture has a peculiar way of capturing collective fears and hopes. The idea of 7 years of darkness is no exception, especially in films, books, and series. It's almost as if content creators are in tune with the pulse of society, translating anxieties into narratives that resonate with the audience. From dystopias depicting a world in collapse to survival stories in apocalyptic scenarios, pop culture provides a space where these ideas can be explored. A clear example is the emergence of films and series that portray post-apocalyptic societies, where characters struggle to survive in a devastated world. These plots are not merely entertainment. They serve as a form of reflection on what could happen if beliefs about the 7 years of darkness become reality. Additionally, representations of natural disasters, wars, and social crises are frequently employed as metaphors for contemporary fears, creating a sense of urgency that resonates with the public. Science fiction and fantasy literature has also been fertile ground for exploring this theme. Authors have the freedom to create worlds where the rules are different, but the central questions often remain the same. How do people adapt to adversity? What keeps hope alive in times of darkness? This quest for meaning and overcoming is a constant in narratives, allowing readers to emotionally connect with the characters. Thus, literature serves not only as an escape, but also as a space for reflection about our own lives. Moreover, pop culture is also responsible for shaping public perception regarding these themes. When a successful film addresses the idea of 7 years of darkness, it can influence how people view reality around them. This raises questions about the responsibility of content creators in representing these ideas sensitively and consciously. After all, in a world saturated with information, the narratives we consume can have a lasting impact on our beliefs and behaviors. Ultimately, the intersection between pop culture and the idea of 7 years of darkness prompts us to question the role of entertainment in our lives. It can be a reflection of our anxieties, but it can also offer solace and hope. When stories are told in ways that inspire resilience and solidarity, they become powerful tools for facing what lies ahead. In this sense, pop culture is not just a representation of our concerns, but also a way to prepare us for the future. When the idea of 7 years of darkness begins to circulate, the reactions from governments and institutions often become a topic of intense debate. The first response many imagine is that governments would try to discredit these beliefs. However, the reality is that in many cases, institutions recognize the power of these ideas and attempt to create policies that address these anxieties. This can include everything from awareness campaigns to the implementation of security measures aimed at protecting the population during times of crisis. An interesting aspect is how governments utilize the narrative of the apocalypse to justify certain actions. When economic crises or natural disasters occur, we often see a mobilization of resources that might not otherwise be justified. The notion that we are approaching a period of darkness can, therefore, serve as a catalyst for governmental action. This raises ethical questions. Are governments genuinely acting in the best interest of the population, or are they merely trying to control the narrative? Furthermore, government responses may include regulating information and promoting discourse that minimizes fears associated with the 7 years of darkness. In a world where misinformation is a constant concern, governments may feel the need to intervene to ensure that people have access to accurate information. Here, the question becomes even more complex. How do we balance freedom of expression with the need to protect society from potentially harmful beliefs? The implementation of emergency policies is also a common response to these beliefs. When a government realizes that the population is in panic, it may feel the need to act quickly to prevent chaos. This can include creating emergency funds, social assistance programs, and even mobilizing armed forces to maintain public order. However, this approach can have unintended consequences, such as increasing distrust between the government and citizens. Ultimately, the governmental response to the idea of 7 years of darkness is a fertile ground for social and political analysis. While some view these actions as necessary to ensure stability, others interpret them as a form of social control. This tension between security and freedom is a recurring theme in debates about public policy and can be seen as a microcosm of the struggle for truth and trust during uncertain times. The search for meaning in times of crisis is a constant in the human experience, and the idea of 7 years of darkness has the potential to catalyze this quest for self-discovery and spirituality. When life becomes uncertain and challenges seem insurmountable, many people turn inward, seeking deeper answers about themselves and the world around them. In this context, spirituality can emerge as a source of comfort and hope. Many wonder, what can these dark years teach us? The idea that we are in a period of transformation can lead individuals to reflect on their lives and priorities. Rather than being consumed by fear, some choose to view this phase as an opportunity to reconnect with their core beliefs and values. This search for meaning often translates into spiritual practices, such as meditation, prayer, or participation in communities that share similar beliefs. Spirituality can also provide a safe space to discuss fears and anxieties. When someone talks about the 7 years of darkness, it may seem like they are sharing a grim prophecy, but at the same time, this conversation can open doors to deeper dialogues. And now, my friend, we reach the climax of this journey. 7 years of darkness are not just a distant narrative, but a reality that could shape our future. Have you ever stopped to think about what this truly means? What would you do if you found yourself in this scenario? How would you prepare to face challenges that seem unimaginable? During this time, humanity will be tested as never before. The choices we make today may echo into eternity. Are you ready to take a firm stand in your faith? Do you see yourself as a beacon of hope in times of darkness? As we approach this new era, it is crucial that we reflect on the role we play in this grand plan. What can we learn from biblical teachings to guide us? More importantly, how can we be agents of change in a world that seems to be crumbling? Before we conclude, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. How do you envision yourself dealing with the challenges of the 7 years of darkness?